Hey guys, how's it going? Really frustrating. I just filmed this and then essentially it had gone off and I hadn't noticed, so it's all gone. How irritating. Anyway, I'm just gonna try and remember all the things that I just said and reiterate them, possibly in a shorter amount of time, but I might miss things out because that sometimes happens when I've just said them all. How irritating. So just to skip ahead slightly, essentially I was talking about when I was in secondary school and, well, sixth form. So for the American audience, that will be sort of like high school time, that kind of thing. And I was studying a play and drama and theatre studies called Woyzeck. And Woyzeck is written by George Buchner, who's an early 19th century playwright in Germany. And it's an interesting play. It's a bit sort of like obscurist, but it's got some interesting parts to it for sure. And some of that is spoilers all over. Just so you know, like, don't expect to be able to watch Woyzeck after this and necessarily enjoy it with any sense of surprise. So in Woyzeck there is a main character called Woyzeck, and he's a soldier and he is a husband and he is, I think, soon to be a father. And the state is taking advantage of him, and essentially people within the government science, government leaders, I guess, or military leaders, they basically sort of see him as disposable, get him to run errands, and also experiment on him. And sorry, I'm just going to turn that off. Cool. And also run errands on, get him to run errands and run experiments on him. And this is because, he is sort of like worthless, and I think that that's what Buchner is trying to portray in this play. I think it's a Brechtian symbolic play as opposed to a Stanislavskian art of acting kind of play. In that it's and I suppose that's part of what we studied, which that was some of the helpful stuff, as opposed to what I'm going to go into, which is just postmodernist nonsense. And I think that that's part of the reason why I did less. I mean, it's not all the reason, but it's part of the reason why I did less well in school than I'd have hoped. And it's because I was sort of having to, instead of just explain what I wanted to explain, I was having to work around some themes that I don't think were valid themes at all. So let's jump into that. The themes that they wanted us to study for the essay that we'd have to write in exam sort of conditions were nature versus science. Not a real theme. Sorry to tell you, like, nature and science aren't, diametrically opposed. They're not incompatible. But I'll explain why they might be in the mind of someone who is indoctrinated into the sort of the chaotic sort of postmodernist mindset. Postmodernist chaotic mindset. So essentially, the government, science people, were taking advantage of Woyzeck by running experiments on him that eventually had his insides dissolve and turn to peas. I know, it's pretty obscure. And this was supposed to be... Gone, done, got me a bike. Nice, well done, mate. Fucking lad just got himself a bike on my messages there. And... yeah. Hold up. Sorry, I should turn this off beforehand. Sorry. Lost my train of thought. What was it? So, essentially, the reason why they use nature versus science as themes is because they don't see science as a way, well, they see science as a way of trying to structure and order, make sense of and categorize nature in order that it has some sort of sense. And they see nature as this sort of this pure, not unstoppable, but untamable sort of beast that is pure and good and like wonderful, and which, you know, it's got some pretty dark aspects to it as well. But they're sort of romanticizing nature because it's in their view less orderly than science, and essentially this is a completely sort of this is a false like idea. It's a fallacy. Like the only it's not necessarily a fallacy. It's just it's an incorrect idea, because the making sense of nature that sort of science provides isn't sort of denouncing nature in any way whatsoever. It's trying to find ways in which, you know, we can reproducibly sort of test what is true and not true about nature, and coming up with, well, essentially having some prior reasoning and then testing that against the empirical reality of nature. And nature, I suppose some people can define it as all that sort of came before sort of humanity, before there was sort of man-made things. That's one definition that's, you know, sometimes sort of like thrown out there by people, roughly speaking. And a more accurate definition, I think, is, you know, that which follows from the natural world, including human beings, and our moulding of natural resources into whatever they might be, because we're doing that, you know, of our own sort of accord. I don't think there's anything beyond sort of I don't think anything is, quote, unnatural in that way. There's certainly some things that are unpleasant, but I don't think that they're necessarily beyond nature. In fact, I find nature quite a problematic, well, not a problematic term, it's just a difficult term to sort of pin down. It's I remember at the time when I was studying this, sort of looking up Aristotle's definition for nature, and to be honest, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to understand, and I don't think other people necessarily sort of understood it better. I think that it was easier to not really question what we were sort of given and give the sort of blanket answers that were expected of us in school, and I think that's often the case. It's quite unhelpful for teachers if someone's like, could you go back, I really, really don't understand any of what we've just covered there. And when they try and explain it, you then say, yeah, I don't think that makes sense. That's not a very productive way to have, you know, lessons in a classroom. Which is why I don't think we ought to do that for the most part. Whew, especially when, you know, discussing topics as big as nature. That's not to say that there aren't some people that, you know, have expertise in those areas. It's not necessarily what I think we're provided with at sixth form and secondary school. So, why does this matter? Why is this, you know, of any importance to you? Why are you watching this? Why are you watching this? Well, essentially, there was some potentially important themes within this play that we could have been looking at, and that I could have been looking at, and that I was, you know, interested in. But when it came to writing an essay, and when it comes to other people wanting to write essays on topics that they do in school, there's a certain degree to which the forming of the sort of questions themselves are important to how engaged someone can be in answering them. Because for my essay, I pretty much had to try and dispel the sort of inconsistency in science versus nature, as opposed to simply write what they wanted me to write, and then in a roundabout way get to the things that I was interested in, which is frustrating. And the and so people that think within a different perspective to all the people, you know, studying within, or people that are willing to think within a certain perspective, because I'm sure many people think, oh, this doesn't seem quite right, but just don't sort of say it, because it's easier to just get the grades as it is. It's not rewarded. It's not rewarded to think outside the box, which isn't what you should be having in the arts. It's not what one ought to be sort of experiencing when studying some form of liberal art. And yeah, that's why I found it frustrating. I think I'm just gonna end it there, because I don't know how long it's gone on for, but I don't want to make it too long for you guys. And I think the general gist is put across, but I might be completely wrong, because I've just done this whole thing maybe 10 minutes ago, finished doing it. So just starting again. What am I bloody like, eh? I'll see you guys later.